I was fired before I could finish explaining why his 28-year-old son couldn't handle classified military protocols. They thought they'd sent me packing with nothing but a cardboard box. What they didn't know was that every critical line of code in their $1.8 billion defense system still had my fingerprints all over it, and the clock was already ticking. My name is Michael Patterson. I'm 52 years old, and at 8:15 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, my 18-year career at Apex Defense Systems came to an abrupt end. Here's the thing about working in defense contracting. You get comfortable. You think loyalty means something. Boy, was I wrong about that. I'd walked into CEO Richard Morrison's office expecting our monthly security briefing for Defense Corps, the military contracting software I'd built from the ground up. This system handled military logistics and classified communication protocols for major Pentagon contractors. Morrison was pacing behind his desk when I arrived. The man never paced unless the board was breathing down his neck. "Mike," he started, "I need you to take on a special assignment. Caleb's joining our leadership team next week." Caleb Morrison, the CEO's son. Fresh MBA from Daddy's alma mater. Big ideas about revolutionizing the defense industry. Last month, he'd posted on LinkedIn about how AI would replace legacy thinking in government contracting. "I want you to get him up to speed on Defense Corps' architecture," Morrison continued. "Show him the ropes, basic security protocols, access levels, that kind of thing. Let me tell you something about Defense Corps. This isn't some startup software you learn from YouTube. We're talking about military-grade cybersecurity with 23 distinct layers of classified protocols. I'd spent 18 years building it from a concept my Air Force unit had sketched out in Afghanistan to a defense platform processing contracts worth hundreds of millions." "Richard," I said, "Defense Corps handles classified material. Caleb doesn't have security clearance, and these protocols require years of military systems experience." "That's being handled," Morrison cut me off. "His clearance is expedited. The board thinks fresh eyes could streamline operations." Fresh eyes. Code for my son needs a job, and this looks important. "I'm managing the Pentagon renewal," I said. "That's a $400 million contract with a deadline next month. Maybe someone from training could handle basic orientation while I focus on, this is the priority now." His voice had that edge. Caleb represents the future of this company. I straightened up, feeling my security badge's weight, the same badge giving me access to systems Caleb couldn't spell. "I can't do that, Richard. Defense Corps isn't a training platform. We're talking about national security protocols that took years to develop. Your son needs fundamentals, not classified systems." Morrison's face went red. "Are you refusing a direct order from your CEO?" "I'm protecting company assets and national security interests," I replied. "The same way I've been doing for 18 years. He pressed his intercom. "Send HR up immediately." Then turned back with the look of a man who'd already decided. "Michael Patterson, your inability to adapt to our evolving leadership structure and refusal to support company initiatives has made your position untenable. You're terminated. Effective immediately." The words should have hit harder. Maybe they would have if I hadn't been preparing for this moment since Morrison announced his succession planning strategy. "I understand," I said. "I'll need to secure my access codes and transfer documentation. That won't be necessary. It will handle transitions. Your access has been revoked. Already revoked." He'd planned this before I'd sat down. The untouched coffee on his desk was probably just a prop. "Oh, and Mike," Morrison called as I reached the door, "your NDA is still in effect. I trust you remember the penalties for violating classified protocols." I paused and allowed myself a small smile. "Of course, Richard, I remember everything. Every single detail." 8:23 a.m., the end of Michael Patterson, Senior Systems Architect. But Richard Morrison had just made the classic mistake powerful men make when they think they own everything someone else built. 2 security guards flanked me, Tony Rodriguez and Brad Williams, guys I'd shared morning coffee with for years. Tony couldn't look me in the eye. Brad's jaw was clenched tight. "Sorry, Mike," Tony muttered as we passed the engineering floor. "This is bullshit." Through the glass walls, I could see my team hunched over their monitors. None looked up, but they knew. Word travels fast in a building where everyone has security clearance. My office looked exactly as I'd left it 45 minutes ago. The world's okayest engineer mug my daughter Sarah had given me sat next to my monitor, half full of coffee. Photos lined my desk. My team celebrating last year's contract renewal, Sarah at college graduation, the original Defense Corps crew from 2006. 15 minutes, Brad said, checking his watch. I began the ritual every terminated employee knows. Personal items only, nothing proprietary. I slipped photos into my bag, wrapped the mug in tissue paper. My hands moved automatically while my mind calculated implications. In the bottom drawer, beneath conference badges and technical manuals, my fingers found what they were looking for. A small black USB drive, no bigger than my thumb. To anyone watching, it looked like personal storage, family photos, tax documents. I palmed it smoothly, slipping it into my jacket pocket. "That's company property," a voice announced from my doorway. Caleb Morrison stood there in a designer suit, holding his phone up and recording. "I'm documenting this for legal purposes. Can't have anyone stealing intellectual property." I turned to face him, keeping my expression neutral. Up close, he looked even younger than 28. Perfectly styled hair, confidence that only comes from never earning anything yourself. Eyes holding arrogance that mistakes privilege for competence. "Hello, Caleb. Congratulations on your new position." He lowered his phone slightly. "Yeah. Well, Dad says I'll be taking over your projects. He says Defense Corps isn't that complicated once you understand modern systems architecture." Behind him, Tony rolled his eyes. "I'm sure you'll do fine," I said, returning to packing. "Defense Corps has excellent documentation. You should probably leave your passwords," Caleb continued, stepping into my office. His expensive shoes clicked like a countdown timer. "Dad says you legacy guys always try to sabotage things when you leave." Legacy guys. 18 years of military service and defense contracting, and I'm a legacy guy. "All my credentials were revoked at 8:15, I said evenly. "It will create new access protocols for you." He frowned, not understanding half of what I'd said. "Whatever. Just don't take anything important." I zipped my bag and took one last look around the office where I'd spent countless late nights, where I'd debugged critical systems under Pentagon deadline pressure, where I'd built something extraordinary. "It's all yours," I said to Caleb, gesturing to the empty desk. "Good luck with Layer 23. "What?" He blinked, confused. "What's Layer 23? "Nothing you need to worry about," I said, walking past him. "I'm sure your father will explain everything." The elevator ride down felt like descending into a different world. Each floor represented another piece of the life I was leaving behind. R&D on 15, legal on 8, where I'd signed contract after contract, including the incorporation papers for Patterson Defense Solutions, LLC, a detail buried so deep in subsidiary paperwork that even our CFO had missed it. The lobby was empty except for the morning receptionist, who gave me a sympathetic nod. The revolving doors spat me onto the sidewalk at exactly 8:38 a.m., 23 minutes after my termination. The morning air hit my face like a wake-up call. I stood on the sidewalk, my box weighing nothing compared to the USB drive in my pocket. Inside that device wasn't stolen code or company secrets. It was something far more valuable. The original patent filings for Defense Corps' architecture, filed not under Apex Defense Systems, but under Patterson Defense Solutions, LLC, with my daughter listed as primary beneficiary. Apex had licensing rights, of course. As long as I remained employed. As long as I remained employed. I smiled for the first time all morning. Walking toward the parking garage, I could see through the building's glass facade that Caleb was already settling into my former office, probably posting about his first day as a defense industry executive. He had no idea that in approximately 142 minutes, when Morrison tried to demonstrate Defense Corps to the Pentagon Renewal Committee, everything would change. My truck's interior had never felt more like a command center. I slid behind the wheel, placed my box in the passenger seat, and pulled out my laptop. The parking garage's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I powered it on, my fingers moving with the precision that comes from 18 years of muscle memory. The Defense Corps management interface appeared, clean, efficient, exactly as I'd designed it. Most people thought Defense Corps was just sophisticated military software. They saw the logistics tracking, the secure communications, the data processing. What they didn't see was the architecture beneath. 23 layers of interconnected security protocols, each more complex than the last. I entered my credentials, not my Apex credentials. Those were dead. These were different, older, more fundamental. The ones I'd registered when I first filed the core patents under my own LLC. Welcome, System Architect. Status, operational. Layers 1 to 22 active. Layer 23, standby mode. Layer 23, my insurance policy, built into Defense Corps' foundation from day one. While Morrison and his board celebrated each new contract I'd secured, I'd been constructing something else, a dead man's switch, elegant in its simplicity. The logic was clean. If the registered system architect's employment status changed from active to terminated without proper transition protocols, licensing verification would be required within 180 minutes. Without that verification, Defense Corps would enter protective mode, refusing all access attempts until the licensing dispute was resolved. I glanced at my phone. 8:47 a.m. Morrison's Pentagon renewal demonstration was scheduled for 11 o'clock, 133 minutes until showtime. My fingers hovered over the activation command. Once I pressed enter, there would be no going back. But then I thought about Caleb's smug recording, about Morrison's calculated dismissal, about 18 years of my life poured into code that they thought they could simply take. I pressed enter. Employment status change detected. Initiating license verification protocol. Countdown. Initiated. 10,800 seconds. The numbers began their relentless descent. I closed my laptop and started the truck. Pulling out into morning traffic, I grabbed coffee from the drive-thru I'd been using for a decade. Better than whatever Morrison had left untouched on his desk during our chat. My phone buzzed. A text from Janet Walsh, my lead security engineer. Heard what happened. This is BS. Team's ready to walk. I pulled over to respond. Don't. Not yet. Watch the 11 o'clock demo. 3 dots appeared, then, what did you do? Nothing illegal, just letting business logic take its course. The city rolled past my windows as I drove downtown, toward the law offices of Brennan and Associates, where a particular document had been waiting in escrow for exactly this moment. My phone kept buzzing. Messages from team members, from industry contacts who'd already heard the news, from recruiters who smelled opportunity. I ignored them all except one. A call from my daughter. Dad, why are you calling so early? Everything okay? Sarah's voice carried the energy of a 24-year-old graduate student at Virginia Tech, getting her master's in cybersecurity, following in the old man's footsteps. Everything's fine, sweetheart. Better than fine, actually. Remember that paperwork I had you sign 3 years ago for the LLC? The one you said was boring legal stuff? Of course. You said it was protection in case something happened to you. Well, it's about to become very important. You might get some calls today. Don't answer any you don't recognize. Let everything go to voicemail. There was a pause. Then, with the intuition that only comes from growing up around military precision, Dad, what did they do to you? They fired me, I said simply, but they forgot to read the fine print. Good, she said fiercely. I never liked that Morrison guy. Too much hair product. Nobody with that much gel can be trusted. Despite everything, I laughed. I'll call you later. Love you. Love you too, Dad. Give them hell. I ended the call and checked the time. 9:25 a.m., 95 minutes until Morrison's world imploded. The Brennan and Associates building loomed ahead, all glass and steel reaching toward the cloudy sky. I pulled into visitor parking and grabbed my laptop bag. Inside that black USB drive wasn't just code, it was freedom earned through 18 years of dedication, about to be claimed in full. The countdown continued. 5,234, 5,233, 5,232. I walked through the lobby, my boots clicking against marble with confident rhythm. The elevator whisked me to the 23rd floor, where Thomas Brennan himself was waiting. We'd spoken only once before, 3 years ago when I'd structured the Patterson Defense Solutions LLC arrangement. It's just a precaution, I'd told him then. I hope I never need it. Now, as his secretary ushered me into his office, I saw him smile the kind of smile lawyers get when a long-dormant strategy is about to pay dividends. Patterson, he said, standing to shake my hand. I heard about your employment change. Shall we discuss your options? I sat across from him, placing my laptop bag carefully beside the chair. Through his floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the Apex building 6 blocks away. Somewhere on the 42nd floor, Morrison was probably making final preparations for his demo. Caleb was likely taking selfies in my old office, and my team was watching the clock. 4,847, 4,846, 4,845. Yes, I said, meeting Thomas Brennan's eyes. Let's discuss exactly what happens when that countdown reaches 0. Meanwhile, back at Apex Defense Systems, the conference room had been transformed into a technological shrine. 3 massive displays showed Defense Corps' interface in crisp resolution, while the company's best remaining engineers stood ready at support stations. The Pentagon Renewal Committee sat around the polished table, 5 officials in suits, tablets ready to capture every detail of the demonstration that would justify their $400 million contract renewal. Morrison stood at the head of the table, confidence radiating like expensive cologne. Beside him, Caleb had changed into another designer outfit, probably preparing for another LinkedIn post about revolutionizing government contracting. "Gentlemen, ladies," Morrison began, his voice carrying practiced authority. "What you're about to see isn't just software, it's the future of defense logistics. Defense Corps represents 18 years of innovation, and under our new leadership structure," he gestured to Caleb, who nodded seriously, "we're prepared to scale beyond anything our competitors can imagine." The lead Pentagon official, Colonel Martinez, leaned forward. "Let's see it in action, Mr. Morrison." Morrison nodded to the lead demonstration engineer, Phillips, who began typing commands. The screens flickered to life, showing Defense Corps' initialization sequence. Everything looked perfect for exactly 15 seconds. Then the first error message appeared. "System architect verification required." Phillips frowned, typing rapidly. "Just a minor authentication hiccup. Let me... Access denied. Authentication failure. What's happening?" Morrison's voice tightened, though his smile remained plastered in place. "I'm not sure, sir. The system is requesting architect-level credentials." "Then use them," Morrison snapped. "I am, sir. They're not working." The screens flashed red. A new message appeared, larger this time. "Licensing verification required. Time remaining. 89:43. Contact system architect for resolution." Caleb, oblivious to the growing panic, leaned forward. "So, sometimes technology has these little glitches. That's why we're implementing more modern approaches to—" "Shut up!" Morrison hissed, his face flushing. The Pentagon team exchanged glances. Colonel Martinez's expression had shifted from interest to concern. "Mr. Morrison, is there a problem with your system?" No problem at all. Just a routine security protocol." Morrison turned to Phillips. "Fix this. Now." Phillips's fingers flew across the keyboard, sweat beading on his forehead. "Sir, I can't access the core systems. It's like they're locked from the outside. That's impossible. We control all access points." "Not all of them," Phillips said quietly, his face pale. "There's something here about Layer 23. I've never seen this before." The countdown continued. 88:23, 88:22, 88:21. "Get Michael Patterson on the phone," Morrison barked. "Sir, he was terminated this morning. I know he was terminated. Get him anyway." The phone rang on speaker. My voicemail picked up. "You've reached Michael Patterson. I'm currently unavailable. If this is regarding Defense Corps system architecture, please consult your licensing agreement. Have a great day." Morrison slammed his hand on the table. The Pentagon officials flinched. "Mr. Morrison," Colonel Martinez stood slowly, gathering his materials. "It appears you have internal issues to resolve. We'll need to postpone this demonstration." "Wait, please, this is just a minor technical—" "Your system is completely inaccessible during a $400 million renewal demonstration." Martinez's voice could have frozen hellfire. "Your new leadership team clearly doesn't understand your own technology, and apparently the only person who can fix this is someone you fired this morning." He shook his head. "We'll be in touch. Maybe." The Pentagon team filed out, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. The countdown reached 85:15. "Sir," Phillips said, voice barely above a whisper, "I found something in the system logs. There's a licensing structure I've never seen before. The core Defense Corps patents, they're not registered to Apex." "What do you mean?" "They're registered to something called Patterson Defense Solutions, LLC. We have usage rights, but they're conditional on—" He trailed off, face white. "Conditional on what?" Morrison's voice was deadly quiet. "On Michael Patterson's continued employment with Apex Defense Systems." The room erupted. Caleb started recording again until Morrison screamed at him to stop. Phillips desperately tried to break through the system lockdown. Engineers scrambled like ants from a destroyed hill. 83:47, 83:46. 8345. Meanwhile, in Thomas Brennan's office, I was explaining the situation to someone who understood exactly what was happening. Impressive, Brennan said, reviewing the patent documents on his tablet. You've essentially created a legal kill switch. I prefer to think of it as proper intellectual property protection, I replied. Apex licensed the technology under specific terms. They violated those terms. And now we wait. In about 80 minutes, Defense Corps will enter full protective mode. Every access attempt will be logged and rejected. The system will become completely unusable until the licensing dispute is resolved. My phone buzzed. A text from Janet. System's going crazy. Phillips is panicking. Morrison's screaming at lawyers. What's happening? I typed back. Employment status change triggered automatic licensing review. Standard protocol. How long until it's resolved? That depends on whether Apex wants to negotiate licensing terms with Patterson Defense Solutions, LLC. Who owns that? My daughter. She's about to become very important to a lot of people. Brennan chuckled. You've been planning this for years. I've been protecting my work for years, I corrected. There's a difference. I hoped I'd never need it. But you're glad you have it. Damn right I am. At 10:15 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Patterson. The voice was strained, desperate. Harold Phillips, interim CTO for Apex Defense Systems. I'm calling regarding the Defense Corps situation. What situation would that be, Harold? Please don't be coy. We've reviewed the patent filings. We know about Patterson Defense Solutions, LLC. Then you know there's nothing to discuss. The licensing agreement was crystal clear. That agreement was made under false pretenses. You were acting in bad faith as an employee. I was an employee protecting my intellectual property, I interrupted. Every filing was legal. Every disclosure made according to contract. You had 3 years to review the structure. Your negligence isn't my responsibility. Michael, please. The board is in emergency session. Our stock has dropped 22% in 2 hours. Without Defense Corps, we're facing potential bankruptcy. I felt cold satisfaction spread through my chest. Then perhaps the board should have thought about that before allowing nepotism to override competence. What do you want? Name your price. I already have what I want. The question is, what are you willing to pay to license technology you thought you owned? This is extortion. No, Harold, this is business. The same kind of business Morrison conducted when he terminated me without cause. The difference is I did it legally. I ended the call and immediately blocked the number. They're panicking, I told Brennan. Good. Panic makes people make bad decisions. Speaking of decisions, I have someone I'd like you to meet. He pressed his intercom. Send Ms. Santos in. The door opened and Clara Santos walked in, Senior Acquisition Director for Titan Defense Group, the largest defense contractor in North America. Silver hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of presence that commanded billion-dollar meetings. Mr. Patterson, she said, extending her hand, I've had a very interesting morning. Clara Santos didn't sit when she entered. People with her kind of power never sat first. She simply gestured, and somehow the room rearranged itself around her authority. I've been tracking the Apex situation since 9:30, she said, settling into the chair Brennan had pulled out. Colonel Martinez called me directly after walking out of their demonstration. In 15 years of working with him, I've never heard him quite so animated. Apex disappointed him, I said. No. She leaned back, studying me. Richard Morrison disappointed him. Apex is just a shell. What we were interested in was Defense Corps, and Defense Corps, it seems, was never really theirs to sell. She produced a tablet, sliding it across the table. On the screen was the original incorporation filing for Patterson Defense Solutions, LLC, with Sarah's name prominently displayed. Our legal team has been busy since 10:30 this morning, Clara continued. Every core patent, every fundamental innovation that makes Defense Corps valuable, it all traces back to this LLC. Apex has been licensing technology they never owned. They had full usage rights, I said carefully, as long as certain conditions were met, conditions that were violated at 8:15 this morning. She smiled then, sharp as winter. Tell me, Mr. Patterson, was this always the plan? I met her gaze steadily. The plan was to build something revolutionary for our military. The protection was just insurance. Insurance that's about to pay out. The question is, what do you want? This was the moment I'd been preparing for since walking out of Apex's building. I want to build the company Apex should have been. No nepotism, no ego-driven decisions, no treating innovation like a commodity to be packaged and sold to unqualified family members. You want control. I want purpose, I corrected. Defense Corps can be more than just profitable. It can be transformative, but only if it's developed correctly, ethically, with long-term vision that goes beyond quarterly earnings. Clara's expression shifted, becoming more focused. Titan Defense was prepared to acquire Defense Corps from Apex for $600 million. That deal is obviously dead, but the technology still exists, and we still want it. What are you proposing? A new entity. Defense Corps Global Systems. Titan provides the capital and infrastructure. I provide the technology and vision. My daughter's LLC licenses the patents to the new company under terms I control. And Apex? Apex becomes irrelevant. They can keep their company, their building, their corporate culture. But without Defense Corps, they're just another mid-tier tech firm scrambling for contracts they can't fulfill. She slid another document across the table. The number at the bottom made my breath catch. That's the signing bonus, Clara said casually. Your salary as chief architect would be separate, as would the budget for your team's relocation and your daughter's education fund. We take care of our people, Mr. Patterson. I thought of Sarah finishing her master's degree, of my team at Apex, brilliant minds trapped under incompetent leadership. I thought of Caleb's recording and Morrison's dismissal. I have conditions, I said. I expected nothing less. First, I bring my team, the core engineers who built Defense Corps with me. They deserve to see it succeed. Done. Second, Defense Corps security standards are non-negotiable. No shortcuts, no outsourcing critical components, no selling access to foreign contractors. We build tools that protect American interests, period. That goes without saying. Third, when we announce Defense Corps Global Systems, I want the defense community to know exactly who built this technology and who tried to steal it. Clara laughed then, genuine and delighted. Oh, I like you, Patterson. Yes, I think we can arrange that. We spent the next hour working through details, Clara's legal team joining us via video conference. By 12:30 p.m., the framework was complete. Defense Corps Global Systems would exist by end of business today. The patents would transfer smoothly from Sarah's LLC, and Morrison would wake up tomorrow to find his company's valuation had dropped by roughly $600 million. As we concluded, Clara stood. Mr. Patterson, I've seen a lot of engineers over the years. The brilliant ones who can't execute, the driven ones who lack vision. You're something rarer. What's that? Patient. You waited 3 years for this moment. That kind of long-term thinking is exactly what Defense Corps Global needs. She extended her hand, and I shook it, feeling the weight of the moment. This morning, I'd been fired in disgrace. This afternoon, I was about to become chief architect of a company with effectively unlimited resources. One more thing, Clara said as I gathered my belongings. Richard Morrison has been calling our offices non-stop. He's desperate to salvage something. Should I return his calls? I considered for a moment, then smiled. Tell him Titan Defense is in negotiations with the patent holder. If he wants to discuss licensing Defense Corps for Apex's use, he can contact Patterson Defense Solutions LLC directly. And will your daughter take his call? My daughter doesn't negotiate with people who have too much hair product. It's a firm rule. Clara's laughter followed me out of the office. The news broke at 1:15 p.m., cascading through defense industry networks like wildfire. Apex Defense Systems loses core technology in employment dispute. Pentagon contract terminated after failed demo. Former architect holds patents to revolutionary defense system. I watched the coverage from my truck, fielding calls from reporters, former colleagues, and competitors who suddenly found my expertise invaluable. But the call I was waiting for came at 1:37 p.m. Mr. Patterson. Morrison's voice was strained, barely controlled. I think we need to talk. Hello, Richard. Enjoying your afternoon? Cut the games, Mike. We both know what this is about, do we? Because this morning you seemed pretty confident you owned everything I'd built. The board. They're willing to discuss terms, reinstatement, back pay, promotion to CTO. Hell, we'll make you president of technology. No, you haven't heard the full offer. I don't need to. You fired me because I refused to babysit your son. You thought I was disposable. That decision has consequences. Mike, please. Without Defense Corps, we're facing bankruptcy. You're talking about destroying thousands of jobs. I felt that cold satisfaction again. I'm not destroying anything, Richard. I'm just not saving you from your own decisions anymore. What do you want? Name your price. I already have what I want. Defense Corps Global Systems launches Monday. We'll be offering enterprise licenses at competitive rates. Apex is welcome to apply like any other potential client. This is extortion. No, Richard. This is business. The same kind of business you conducted when you terminated me without cause and tried to steal 18 years of my work. The difference is, I did it legally. I ended the call and immediately blocked the number. My laptop chimed with a video call. Janet's face appeared, and behind her I could see several familiar faces from my core team. Mike, is it true? Janet's eyes were bright with excitement. Defense Corps Global? Titan backing? It's true. And I want all of you with me. Same positions, 30% salary increase, equity stakes, and the chance to build Defense Corps the way we always dreamed. The cheers that erupted made me smile. These were the people who'd stayed late debugging critical systems, who'd believed in the vision even when management didn't understand it, who'd made Defense Corps possible. When do we start? Asked Tom Rodriguez, my senior network architect. Monday. Titan's legal team will handle the exit negotiations with Apex. Just document everything and don't sign anything without running it by our lawyers first. After the call, I drove home through suburbs filled with American flags and kids playing in yards. Somewhere in that maze of office buildings downtown, Morrison was probably raging at lawyers, demanding solutions that didn't exist. Sarah called as I was grilling dinner. I got the strangest call today, she said, humor in her voice. Someone named Morrison, very agitated, offering me $3 million for some paperwork I signed. What did you tell him? That I don't negotiate with men who fire my father. Also that his hair product was showing up even over video call, which seemed unprofessional. I laughed. Really laughed for the first time all day. I love you, kiddo. I love you too, Dad. Now tell me about this new company. As I filled her in on Defense Corps Global, on Titan's backing, on the team that would join us, I felt the last tension dissolve. Tomorrow, the press release would go out. The defense world would wake up to a new reality, one where Defense Corps existed independent of Apex, where innovation trumped nepotism, where a fired engineer owned the very foundation his former company needed to survive. They'd fired me at 8:15 a.m. By sunset, I'd won everything. The best revenge, as they say, is massive success, and I was just getting started.